Welcome to the Mainframe Skills and Learning stream. We've had a number of very successful presentations so far, and we're going to hear now from one of the originators of the stream, one of the owners, Paul Fairburn, who is going to be talking about some of the skills and the resources that come with IBM's education programs. My name's Herb Daly. If we've not met, I have a long-term interest in this stream as well, and we're going to talk about some of the other events that we're going to have coming up in the conference. Big thing to remember: we love your questions and your feedback. Paul and I were talking about it earlier, about how interesting it is when we get some interaction, and it really helps us kind of develop the content and the messages. We do have events throughout the year, so we're very keen to engage you today. So without me stealing any of his time, and with me hopping off to help any latecomers come in, I give you over to Paul, who will introduce himself and get us all started. Thanks very much, Paul.
Many thanks, Herb. First of all, thank you to those of you based in England who are giving up their last lunchtime before lockdown to join this session, and to our American colleagues who are probably also got an eye on the how the elections are going just at the moment. It all seems to be very close. If you have any questions over the course of the session, then please just put them in chat. Herb will deal with those that come in that he's got answers to. If there's anything he feels is appropriate for a broader audience, he will chip in, as he has a tendency to do anyway, and just let us know if there's anything that people got particular questions of that would be valuable for everybody to hear. Just as by way of introduction, as Herb said, my name is Paul Fairbairn from IBM. I'm the Z Client Skills Leader for Europe. So I have the fun job of working with IBM clients, Z clients, and universities, with colleagues such as Herb from Wolverhampton, on growing the visibility of IBMz Enterprise, IT, or mainframe, whatever you prefer, with students, helping to resolve any issues of finding resources that these clients require in order to run and maintain their mainframe systems. What I wanted to do today was introduce you to some of the key resources, and by no means all of them, otherwise we would be here all day, for giving you access to training materials, to systems, to blogs, digital, face-to-face. What I'm trying to focus on is what's new, what's free, and in the current climate, digital. So as I said, any questions, please just ask. What I've got right at the end is a summary of some of the key assets with links, so you can see what's appropriate for each audience as a reminder. If you want to access this session later, if you run it, the content or the presentation is actually in the agenda on your BYOA. All of the links work there to the assets that I'll be talking about today. So if you're in screen show mode, you'll be able to just click a link and it will take you directly to the asset that I'm talking about. So over the course of the next however long, I want to talk to you around communities, events, free trials and systems access, to explore some of the learning resources that are available to you, whether you are an employer, a software engineer, a student, an academic. Regardless of your background, there's a lot of resources out there. Spend a little bit of time on the resources specifically for academics, and pulling out some of the sort of particularly interesting things like the sort of competitions that are going on. Okay, so without further ado, let's move on. So where do you start? Now, I think from the best place I can think for anybody to start is the new IBM Linux Z community page. So this was set up about 12 months ago. It's free for anyone to join. So regardless of your role, this is a great place to go to get access to IBM Z content, Linux One content, links to other resources, events, learning materials, video courses, webinars, blogs, testimonials, interviews, user groups, a whole host of things that you'll find useful. There's a quick link if you want to go directly through to the skills and sort of learning resources. You can use ibm.biz/Z talent, but I'll come back to that later. In the interim, I would recommend anybody on the call listening to the recording to actually join the IBM community. It's a great way of keeping in touch with the new things that are going on, anything else that's relevant, and a great place for actually putting some content as well. So one of the things I highlighted around the community was that it's a great resource for finding out events that are going on. So just recently we've had IBM Tech U, which is a great place to go for skills development. We had the second IBM Z Day. I hope a number of you actually participated in that. We had over 12,000 registrations for that event from 96 countries. And from an IBM point of view, the great thing was that it was actually 80% non-IBM attendees. And there's a whole series of sessions from industry leaders and subject matter experts. And the recordings of those sessions are all available if you missed it. So you can just go to the link there and get access to a whole series of Z content. As part of that Z Day, we also ran a Master the Mainframe Codathon, and I'll talk to you in more detail about Master the Mainframe later on. For now, it is both a competition and a learning system that's aimed primarily at students, regardless of their age. One of the winners of last year's competition in Europe was actually nearer my age than a new graduate coming through. So it just shows you the sort of breadth that people are interested. But to kick that competition off this year, we ran a codathon. In fact, Herb was one of the hosts on one of those sessions. So over a 24-hour period, we ran a series of 2-hour codathons where we got recent graduates to do part 1 of the Master the Mainframe competition live with a bit of support from the host, and other students could work alongside them. Master the Mainframe is particularly of interest if you're not aware of how it works this year, because it's been rebased now on VS Code and Zoe, moving away from the old green screen that we would have used for Master the Mainframe and introducing a far more modern view of the mainframe to students. Other events, the Open Mainframe Summit that some of you may have attended, that was the first one of those they've run, and a whole series of other regular events. I don't know, unfortunately I can't see the sort of makeup of those of you who are actually listening to this live, but if you are new to the platform, either as a student or a relatively recent hire, then there's a community called New to Z, which I would recommend you connect to, because they run a whole series of events aimed at people in that sort of community, that sort of those years of experience, trying to bring them together, share content, share experiences, share learning. So that's another useful resource to go and look at. In addition to the sort of things that have already completed, this is a great time to also plug the Mainframers meetup. This is a quarterly meetup that started off with a London group probably about 18 months ago. This actually went digital with COVID, and it's still running quarterly, but now, because it's the event is run in the evening, it's suitable for pretty much anybody across Europe, provided you're comfortable with English. It comes with a whole series of lightning talks covering technical topics and some personal sort of development topics as well. The next one of these is coming up on the 19th of November. It's all free. You just need to go and register with on the meetup page. The link is there to gain access to those. At the moment, we're getting about 120 people now turning up to this session. So there's a building community who are coming along. and participating in these meetups. Also in the community, I mentioned around user groups. Probably the most significant, and this was launched back in the end of March. It was one of the first things that we did with lockdown. We felt there was an immediate need for a lot more digital content aimed at students who were, as most of you are aware, probably working from home at that point. And academics were scrabbling around to find content that was available to them digitally. We launched the Student Hub with a series of weekly webinars. So the content was aimed at students, but it was relevant really to anybody new to the platform. We were running technical and personal development webinars, several of those each week. We introduced COBOL Fridays, which was very specific COBOL content. Libraries of all of the material is available online, so you can just go to the Student Hub and actually download those webinars if you choose to use them. And one of the beauties of the Student Hub was that a lot of the content was actually brought forward by students for students. So there are sessions on there about recruitment hints and tips. There are sessions in there on the academic initiative and how to access it and the sorts of material that's available. There are a great series of links to IBM resources that are relevant for students. So if you're in that peer group, or even if you're an academic, this is a good place to go and find content that is relevant to that new to Z group. Other user groups that are also available as part of the community, there's an EU user group. What we tend to do with this user group is to focus more on content that's language specific. So we've had sessions on Master the Mainframe. We've run a Master the Mainframe workshop in German. We've got some sessions in Portuguese. And in fact, just going back to the Open Mainframe Summit, there are a number of non-English sessions that were presented there, and some of the most popular are actually in Portuguese. We've run some events in the Netherlands and around Europe. So that's another good place to go and look, particularly if you're interested in European specific or non-English language events. If you've got questions on this stuff, if there's specific things that you're looking for, again, please pop it into the chat or to contact me later. You can see my details in the agenda and also again at the end of the presentation. I'll be very interested to hear about things that you would find useful. And may find we've actually already got them available. Just because of time, I've not intended to cover them today. Okay, so let's move on to a few more of the practical things. What free trials and system access are there available for you? So from a Linux One point of view, we have the IBM Linux One Community Cloud. This is a no charge offering on a live mainframe. You've got a 24/7 enterprise grade access. The access lasts for 120 days. So you can get plenty of opportunity to get hands-on actually on a mainframe. If you're interested in IBM Linux One, then the link to get started is there. Just click on that and register, and they'll get that set up for you. We've also got something called Z Trial. So this is an opportunity to try out the latest IBMz technology. So this covers everything from sort of cloud, DevOps, and API integration software, database and application server software, IT operations software, machine learning and AI software. I said it's all free. It comes with no installation. And your hands-on trial is generally available within 2 hours, and you have that for 3 days. So that's a great way of taking a look at something like ZOS Connect, following through the sort of instructions so you get some hands-on with the product to see what it's like. And from a teaching point of view, you've got an opportunity to point students at different pieces of software, maybe go and get them to do some sort of level of evaluation of the product, assessing where it might fit into an enterprise IT environment. The other thing, and I've touched on that, and I'll touch on it again several times, is Master the Mainframe. Now, whilst I talk, and I'll cover in more detail the competition later, the whole system is available all year round as a learning system. You don't get access to the prizes that come with the competition, but you can still earn the digital badges. And this is a sort of hands-on series of challenges. It comes with a lot of videos and menus that help you work through and grow your learning. This is not a game. This is very much a learning environment and is aimed there to actually build skills. As I said, it comes in three phases. The first one will take you about an hour. The others probably a day and a half each. Herb's, if you want some more details on this, Herb's team have been doing very well at getting all the way through all part 3 of this competition. The other access is to the Ibmz Academic Cloud. So this is a no-charge access to a live ZOS system. This is aimed for teaching and research purposes, so it's only available to academics and students. It's not available, unfortunately, to our clients or computer hobbyists or for your own self-education. There are other alternatives, such as the learning system is the best way of doing that. If you're an academic and interested in registering, then you could use the link there that takes you through to the academic initiative site, which I'll talk to you about later, to actually register for your institution to get access to the mainframe. Students unfortunately can't register for access to the system. They need to go through their academics and for the institution to have access to these materials. Any questions, Herb, or any that we worth raising before we move into learning resources? Sounds like no, so I'll carry on. Okay, so this is now sort of moving into the sort of meat of what I really wanted to talk to you around today. I said a good starting point for this from either within the community or going directly is the ibm.biz/Z talent page, which takes you to a whole series of assets that are of value. Now, what I find useful is actually this next page. This is a combination of all of the sort of resources, I say all, a key subset of the resources with links in areas that help you, ranging from how to find talent, how to qualify it, to building eminence, training for no cost, training for fee, covering again things like the access to the systems we've talked about, transferring knowledge and some assets specifically aimed at our employers. So I'll spend a little bit more time sort of going through this page. Looking at finding talent, we ran a series of IT Career Connect events last year, and the idea behind these is that they are half-day, evening sorts of workshops. We work with clients who are looking to recruit in a specific area. So we ran, from a UK point of view, events in Edinburgh and London. We work with that client, we identify a local university or universities to work with, and we go and run the workshop on that university site. We know students work far better if you actually come to them rather than expecting them to travel. It's easy to get the employer to go to that site. And the way these sessions worked was that they were, because we were talking almost exclusively to people who've never heard of a mainframe, and these were primarily IT students, and we did have people from a whole breadth of different areas. We've had some lawyers coming along. What we did was to introduce them to the mainframe, talk about it as a server. We didn't go near the history. We spent our time really focused on what the mainframe is good for, why you would use it, who uses it. We get the clients to actually talk about why the mainframe is important in their environment, the sorts of roles they have, and then we get the students to actually complete part 1 and master the mainframe, so they got some hands-on experience. Those have sort of been paused because we're limited in where we can travel to just at the moment, but we will start those off again next year. In the interim, we're running other workshops with universities to grow visibility of the mainframe. If you're an employer and are interested in participating, you've got links to a specific university or you'd like to build up links, please reach out. We can look to see what we could possibly do with you. We find it works far better when talking to students to actually have not only IBM, because we've clearly got a vested interest in it, but actually having employers coming along as well and saying, yeah, this stuff really matters. You know, if you're looking for a job that's that you're going to continue to learn over the course of your career, it's going to be something where it really matters. If you screw up, the chances are it's going to be on the front of the newspaper or on the BBC News. The mainframe is a great place to go to, and you are building a set of skills that set you up very well for your employability long term. And of course, with modernization now, you're building a set of skills that are also far more transferable. So you're not as limited as maybe you would have been in the past. So as I said, if you've got interest in those things, reach out to myself. There's my contact details and a number of my colleagues who are around Europe and Africa, depending on where you're based. There's Talent Match, which is sort of best described as a dating agency for Z skills. So the idea here is that students who've completed part 2 and part 3 of Master the Mainframe are invited to send their CVs into Talent Match. Other students who've displayed capabilities and interest in the subject are also able to access Talent Match, along with clients who can go there and look to find matches with employees who've got the right sets of skills and interests, and possibly living in the right sort of areas to then move on and progress towards either internships or full employment. Another source of talent is the Master the Mainframe Wall of Fame. So as students complete Master the Mainframe, we have a Wall of Fame that shows the progress of students globally who are making their way through the program, or maybe have even completed it. So you can get access to actually reach out to those students. We talked a little about the Open Mainframe project earlier. There's Jobs Board, but that's primarily IBM sorts of jobs. So if you're looking for jobs in IBM, the Jobs Board is a good place to go and have a look. If you're somebody who's not a traditional student, or you're looking to transition from another role, maybe you're in IT working on distributed systems and you want to move across to the mainframe, there's a great article there in the New Collar Job, a mainframe technician, to actually highlight some of the benefits, who's looking, why you should look at mainframe skills. Qualifying talent, we've talked about the Master Mainframe learning system. There are a whole series of digital badges. We'll come along to that in a little bit more detail later. There's something, the Mainframe Foundation test. This is a free test that's basically come from some work that RSM were doing. And this is helping students to prepare for the mainframe technical professional certifications. So that is out there. There's information on building eminence, and the reason why we highlight this is there's clearly things that you can do to make your business, if you're an employer, look appealing to a student. There's a lot of training materials that we're starting to get into, but another important aspect of that is ensuring people stay. And in addition to a training and the sort of work they have to do, giving people the opportunity to build their eminence is also a great way of encouraging staff to remain with you. And things like the IBM conferences, GSE itself is a great way, particularly when we are able to get back face to face again, of building a network, building your skills, getting a chance to go and speak yourself on topics that are relevant to the mainframe that you know will be interesting. There are communities out there. There's New to Z. So as I said, that's a great place for people who are new to the platform to go to actually be part of a community. Often we find where maybe an employer is only be hiring a couple of graduates, there can be a perception that as a new grad, you're the only person in the place who's not got grey hair. So being part of this New to Z community opens up your eyes to the thousands of other young software engineers working in the mainframe who are addressing the same sorts of challenges you are, and you get that chance to sort of reach out and build that group up. Moving on to sort of training. We've talked about the learning system. We have ZOS intros. Now, my colleague has been running a couple of these a year, one in Europe each year. We've had to change our plans this year because of COVID, so he was unable to travel. But what he's basically done is to take the ZOS bootcamp, so the ZOS fundamentals class, which would have been probably 6-7 days of face-to-face education, and he does that virtually for clients. He did one in the US, he did one in Europe last year. He's looking at running one in India, hopefully later this year, maybe next. But it's worth keeping an eye on these websites to see what of these events, which are generally free. So it's a great way of doing training online and with easy access. Whole series of ZOS videos, ZOS YouTube videos covering a whole breadth of different areas. Just going back to the sort of ZOS intro, and I'll cover this in a bit more detail in a few minutes. But we've also now got a virtual version, so a web version of the ZOS fundamentals, which lasts for about 60 hours. It is free if you use the IBM Training site. If you use the Coursera version, then it's free for the first week or 30 days, and then it's chargeable. So I'd recommend the IBM Training site to get access to that, and you've got the link a little bit further on. From the point of view of the subsystems, there are KICS Redbook courses available, so these links all work. There's links to the Redbook videos, there's the new KICS introductory course, and another one which is just being released aimed at application developers. There are similar sorts of content available for IMS. So lots of content available online for you to get access to. There's something called the Mainframe Playground. Now this, unfortunately, is not an opportunity for you to access a mainframe itself, but what it has is a whole series of workshops that you can take and use and run on your own mainframes for learning purposes. We have a massive open online course, a MOOC, that's been developed by some of our Z champions in Germany. In fact, Philip Brunner, who's a professor at one of the universities in Germany, is actually speaking on this track later this week, I think. Yes, in fact, 10:30 UK time on the 10th. So no, next Tuesday, Philip will be talking. So that's a good session to watch out for. And that, what they provided in that course is actually free content. So that's something else that would be worth looking at if that's an asset that you would find, or a format that you would find useful. And then we've got the interactive product catalog. And this sort of goes along very nicely with the Z trials, and it's an interactive view of IBM products in a sort of visual form, so you can see how they fit together. And the other thing is Call for Code. Now, this is a global competition that's been run for the last couple of years. It's aimed at groups of students working on open source projects. In fact, Herb's Wolverhampton team have a team actually in the finals of this year's global competition, and they're doing something with Mainframe, which is really interesting. We don't know the results of that yet, so we can't advertise anything any further. Training for a fee, we've got IBM Training, and I'll cover that in just a minute. We've talked around TechU, although we didn't mention the sort of the Fast Start program or 101 track as it is at GSE UK, which is aimed at people new to the platform. We've got a Mainframe Apprenticeship program that is IBM specific at the moment, but is interesting from the point of view of providing a framework for anybody else interested in this sort of program, or if you're a school student interested in an apprenticeship rather than going on to college and doing a degree, then that is worth having a look at. The final item here is actually the Aidcp certificate. This is a certificate program that comes from Marist College in New York. This is a full program, digital program that's taught by the professors at the university. But that is, there is a fee associated with that. So that's, if the format works for you there and you have funding, then Marist College offering is not a bad place to go for a holistic program. Okay, so let's move on now to maybe some of the other resources that are available. So if you're an employer or an student, or maybe somebody looking to get employed, the Employer Resource Centre is a great place to go to look at every phase of the sort of talent management life cycle. You require an IBM ID, so you just need to sign up for that and register. So there's no cost to this. But what it gives you access to is a whole series of resources like training programs, insights from new hires. So there's some interviews with students who are new to the platform, those who've been on the mainframe a little bit longer, explaining why they took the jobs they did, what interests them, what appeals to them, why they can see themselves staying on the platform, and any sort of hints and tips they've got for an employer attracting and hiring other young professionals. There are testimonials from other managers who've been down the route of recruiting Z professionals. In fact, Herb is running a session next week, I think, Herb, on some work that he's doing on a tool that helps recruiting managers to identify students who would be appropriate for a mainframe career. So this is providing some additional help on top of any information you get from the resume, CV, or from the application form that looks at the types of person who've been successful in the mainframe and gives some sort of feedback and some guidance that you can use when assessing candidates. And there's video tutorials and lots of other stuff in there. So if you're an employer looking to develop your talent plan, looking to attract, hire, train, retain students, then the Employer Resource Centre is a great asset to go to. Ibmz Skills is another one of the hubs for Z education. So regardless of the sort of role you have, that website is a great place to go to find out where to start from a point of view of training Z skills. And from there you can get directed onto the IBM Training site, which has hundreds of mainframe courses and resources available to you. We've talked about the Z community, so let's move on to the Master the Mainframe competition. So whilst the learning system, which goes live at the same time, is available all year round, the competition is only available from September through to early January each year. It's a global competition. There are 3 different levels. It's introducing students to the mainframe, to wholesaling new technologies. It comes with the opportunity to earn a number of badges and comes with prizes. Now those prizes vary, and I'll touch on a couple of those in just a moment. In practical terms, if you're a student looking at this, most of the prizes are monetary, although there are some social benefits to this, which I will cover in just a couple of seconds. Okay, so from the point of view of when, who, and where, the Master Mainframe competition opened on the 14th of September. It's closing on January the 17th. It's open for people to complete the levels at their own pace. As I said before, there are a whole series of new challenges that lead you from the start right the way through the program. It comes with videos for each of the sections that you can sit and watch. So if you're an academic looking at this and thinking, I don't know anything about the mainframe, I can't teach it, you don't actually need to. All of the content a student would need to participate is actually available. And actually, we do say with Master Mainframe, no prior knowledge is required. You don't need to be a computer science student in order to come and take part in Master the Mainframe. The competition itself is open to any student aged 13 plus. From the point at which you access the competition, so www.mastermainframe.com, when you register with your ID, based on the ID, it will take academic students through to the competition. It will take anybody else through to the learning system. So you don't need to worry about, am I going to the right one? Have I signed on to the competition and I'm not allowed? The process is taking place for that. And it's also available, that's available from pretty much anywhere as long as you've got some access to a system. Just sort of looking at the sort of the competition itself, and got some results from the 2019 competition that were announced back in March. This is a great resource to use for meetups. So as I said, we've used it for the IT Career Connect events. It's a good way of bringing students together to give them some hands-on experience together where they can earn some digital badges, join a sort of broader, as my American colleagues would say, an awesome community of new to Z. There's a Slack channel that runs along with it, so if you get stuck, you can get help. We run events like the Codathon so that students can take part along with us and actually do it, getting first-hand help. And just to give you a view of the number of students, so last year there were over 25,000 students registered worldwide to take part in the Master Mainframe competition. That was they were from 154 different countries, which was some 37% increase on the previous year. So we've seen some real growth in Master Mainframe and the interest in mainframe skills. 4,000 schools took part, and just to give a plug again for Herb and his team, and Michael, if he happens to be on the call as well. Letterkenny and Wolverhampton did exceptionally well again in this year's competition. And just to give a pat on the back to the European team again, the school with the highest number of Part 3 finishers was actually from Belgium. So great to see the sort of spread of these skills around the globe. Now it says 7,000 children fed. What am I talking about? So for Part 1, for every student who completes Part 1 of this year's competition, we're again working with the United Nations World Food Programme. There's an app called @Share the Meal. And the idea basically is, rather than us giving prizes for everyone who completes Part 1, some plastic that'll end up in the ocean or a t-shirt, we felt it was far more valuable to actually work with the United Nations, and so that for every student who finishes Part 1, so that just takes an hour of your time, 2 children get fed for a day. There've been a number of sessions where that's actually been doubled, so that 4 children have been fed for a day. So if for no other reason, students are also accessing this competition to do Part 1, they might not have money to go and give to charity, but they've got an hour of their time to go and build some skills, provide some additional depth to their CVs and resumes, and feed a couple of children at the same time. So it's a great program from that point of view. And if you've got questions about how to run workshops, then they're probably good ones for Herb as well, because his Wolverhampton Computing Society have been running schools events. They ran them last year, which resulted in Wolverhampton having the most Part 1 finishers globally for a specific school. So that was a great result for Wolverhampton. And I'm just showing you here a comment that came back from Brian in Zimbabwe. The contest changed the way I looked at the mainframes. It gave me a glimpse of future of enterprise computing. He was one of our Middle and East and Africa winners. From a prize point of view, once I've talked about it mainly financial, what we've done in previous years is the winners have actually been invited to the Think conference in San Francisco. So there are a broader set of assets for, or potential prizes for global winners. Clearly not a good year to win when there was all conferences have pretty much been cancelled, but hopefully as we start to move forward, we'll see these things coming again. Okay, conscious of time. IBM Training. So this, some of you may be familiar with this as the IBM Skills Gateway. It's been rebranded, it's being updated. There's updates taking place at the moment. This is the source of pretty much all mainframe training materials, fee and free. So this is if you've got skills that if there's a course you're particularly looking for, or content you're particularly looking for, the IBM training site, if you can't find it on Z Talent, the training site is a great place to come to. You can see the number of sort of badges, articles, certifications, courses, and learning journeys that are available. The learning journeys are really very interesting. So just picking one of them, we have a new learning journey for architecting applications with Z and application modernization with IBM ZOS. Now these are the ones we've got shown here are essentially no cost. They come in a whole series of different pieces or assets of training materials to help you build skills in these particular areas. So just go and click on those links and it will guide you through the courses, the articles, the hands-on sessions that we recommend you do in order to build skills in those areas. Okay, I talked earlier about this. This is the where we used to have the ZOS fundamentals or ZOS bootcamp. It used to be face-to-face courses lasting between 5 and 8 days. We now have the ZOS Mainframe Practitioner course. This is a certificate. It comes with 3 badges. There's about 60 hours of education in 3 different sort of course sets of courses. This is all free. So from the point of view of somebody new to the platform, I get asked, where would you start? From my point of view, I would recommend a combination of this certification and Master the Mainframe as a great way of getting a clear understanding of the fundamentals of mainframes, how they work, getting hands-on experience. And as Michael mentioned earlier in his session, there are examples where students who've gone through Master the Mainframe have actually got jobs, and also businesses transferred between countries based on the success of a certain group of employees making their being very successful within Master the Mainframe. So I think so. This asset in Master the Mainframe, I think, are a great place to actually start. Some other resources I've not mentioned with the focus on COBOL skills that kicked off earlier this year, following some comments from the governor of New Jersey, where there was, I think, a number of different states were having problems that they were desperate for COBOL skilled programmers because of the stresses and strains that the social security system were being put under in the US, because of the number of people looking for medical cover because they've been laid off, looking to try and find out what money they could get access to. And a lot of people actually started coming out of the woodwork, volunteering their COBOL skills, and it encouraged us to bring forward some work that we were already doing to provide COBOL training. So just a couple of assets that are really good for COBOL. There is the IBM developer site. The link is there just below it, which has got a number of different COBOL sessions. And the Open Mainframe project has also released a great COBOL course. They've actually got one on Zoe as well. Should you be interested in both of those, and all of those are free. Okay, conscious of time, moving on. So specifically for any academics who are logging in, or students, the Academic Initiative is a self-service program that provides students and faculties at accredited academic institutions with access to select IBM resources at no charge for classroom and non-commercial research purposes. And the real sort of benefit from a student's point of view is that it enables them to graduate with direct hands-on experience of technologies that will help them in their chosen career. Now, whilst I'm sort of focused on Ibmz, and I'll touch on what's available to academics through the Academic Initiative for Ibmz, there are also similar sorts of resources available for Watson, security, blockchain, quantum, the whole list that you can see on that particular chart. And academics can get started there by visiting ibm.com/academic. Going back to Ibmz, sort of resources that are available. We've talked about a lot of these. There's the Student Hub, there's the Master Mainframe Competition. There's links to the Linux One Community Cloud, the Ibmz Academic Cloud, the Resource Center, and there's a virtual tour of the Z15. There's a live tour of the plexiglass Z15 in Birmingham Lab within the training materials in resources in the lectures database, which I'll talk about just in a minute. So lots of different resources there. There are course materials, the Enterprise Computing Kickstart, which is 13 courses and content available for academics. There's Introduction to the Mainframe textbook. There's COBOL courses, there's the 0S Introduction, and there's the similar sorts of content for Linux on Ibmz. Master Mainframe again from a badges point of view, and material on careers as well. Some studies and some more advice on progression in your career. This is good to use alongside the Student Hub and the Ibmz community, because similar sorts of assets are available to help guide people new to the platform or looking to get into the platform, those who are just looking to build their skills. I talked about additional resources available to academics. There's a batch of broader topics here, like Ibm Design Thinking, which is the process that Ibm development use for building their systems and products now. There are Open PTech. There's Ibm Skills, the Ibm Skills Academy, which is a chargeable offering from IBM University Relations for academic institutions. This is IBM provides the materials for a whole course and actually teaches the teachers on how to deliver it. This is available through the Middle East and Africa, and is focused primarily on core mainframe skills and operator type skills, if that's of interest. And the final thing in this session was just a flyer with highlighting some of the resources that are particularly interesting for students or those new to the platform. We've touched on all of these, but it's just sort of keeping them in one place in a handy flyer that you can actually send out. The most recent program is the Z Ambassador program. So this is a series of a group of volunteers from around the globe who are interested in the mainframe, helping to build their Ibmz student community in their schools, colleges, universities. They're running events locally, so maybe a Master the Mainframe meetup, and advocating for Ibmz on that platform. There are an extra pair of legs within universities and schools, and a great way of an asset to go to get programs running, to get feedback on how something we're looking to do maybe works for a particular age group. So that if you are a student, either at university, college, or school, and are interested in participating, if you Google Z Ambassadors, it will take you directly to the page. And almost to finish with, these are the contact details of the EMEA Z ecosystem team. So as myself and Roland Trauner, who's based in Germany, are focused primarily on skills, and then we have Jen, Joris, and Pilar, who are developer advocates working with client developers to make them aware of mainframe capabilities, helping them to grow skills, etc. So if you've got questions, please reach out to those guys. Just before I close and open for any questions in the last 10 minutes, what I've done in the next few charts is just to try and summarize some of the key assets that are available with the links, with the description of what they are, the audience, whether they're fee and free, and whether there's any badges associated with it. I won't talk to these in any detail because we've been through them now over the course of this morning. So you can get access to these from the chart deck in the agenda. And if you can't find or have any issues or have any questions, then please reach out to myself. Finally, from my point of view, thank you for those of you who've listened and were interested. I'd like to advertise the UK GSE conference charity, the NSS and NHS charities together. And also just to remind you, as Herb did at the start, that this is session 6AH. Please use the QR code or go to that online website to provide some feedback. It's always useful to know what's worked well and what hasn't, particularly in an environment where you get no feedback of any form from your audience to see whether people are actually awake or have all nodded off. So with that, I'll hand you back to Herb. I can't hear you, Herb. Are you muted?
Hello.
Right, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm unmuting myself. Thank you so much. Loads of information there. I wonder if we have any additional questions. I know one or two that we had as we were going along have been covered. But if anybody has any more thoughts that they'd like to share, then please speak up. One thing I want to ask you, Paul, is how have we been coping with the different circumstances this year? How have we been finding that?
It's interesting, actually. I mean, I was interested to see how this conference goes, but what we've actually found is when we went into lockdown back in middle of March, the whole team essentially focused on moving as much as we could digital, so that we had lots of assets out there for students, for academics to use, for employers, for software engineers who are based at home and have the opportunity to start to build their skills. So that's driven moving a lot of things online that we would have done at conferences. And what we've seen over and over again is that the reach that we have with going digital is significantly higher than we were finding at conferences. If you look at the Mainframers meetup, for example, when that was a live event in London, we would have maybe 35 people turning up on an evening. We're now getting in excess of 120 participating, and hopefully advertising it again through this environment will give the opportunity for more people to participate. And it's free, it's online. There's a whole series of lightning talks that you can participate in. So those sorts of assets have been great. So I think the simple answer is that it's a different environment. I miss, certainly from my point of view, being able to get face to face, and we miss out on these sorts of discussions that would take place maybe at a booth or in a session. But if we're given where we are, this is working reasonably well.
Paula, I've had a question about whether there are any plans for other free courses for people who are out of work, perhaps.
Yes, there's an awful lot of resources out there. I mean, we've been talking about students at the moment, but things like the certificate course and Master the Mainframe are equally valuable to somebody who's looking to for a career change. We talk to people coming out of the services. In the current environment, there's a lot more people potentially looking for new careers and are interested in something like enterprise IT, where there is far more longevity when it comes to career opportunity. So no, there's the vast majority of what I've spoken to this morning is free for pretty much anybody to use. The only things where I've highlighted is not things like the academic initiative are clearly aimed at academics, and a number of the IBM training courses are also chargeable through our global training partners who deliver them either in face-to-face classes or digital classes. But that's all clear from the IBM training site. If there are specific areas that people think it would be really valuable to have training available, then please reach out to me. We may well have it. There are huge amounts of assets out there. The biggest problem is finding the right ones to go to. So I'm more than happy to help. My LinkedIn details are also in the agenda should anybody want to connect via LinkedIn.
Fantastic. So thank you very much. I think we're close enough to the hour, and I think we've kind of gone through enough of our questions that that we can probably leave it here. Please, please, please do leave us some feedback. It's very important. We love to hear from you, and as we say, that links into some of the other things that are happening around the conference. I hope you have a really great conference this year. There's some incredible talks. I'm particularly recommending the Mark Nelson talk about the mainframe and the moon this afternoon, and I hope to see you at some of the other sessions, maybe even one of mine. So thanks very much, and we'll see you in some other events. Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Many thanks, Herb, and thanks everybody for joining.